Oops, there I am. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Dead. Cleaning up my office. It's quite messy. I've been doing that since the holiday, and I'm way behind schedule. So welcome to the first Sunday Night Dead of 2024. The irony of my shirt. I actually lost a bunch of friends today because I have renounced the Eagles as my team. I no longer follow them. I posted the Cowboys star on my social media, which, don't get me wrong, will never root for the Cowboys. I pretty much despise every single thing about them. And if folks know me really well, don't particularly have a very high opinion of the whole state of Texas in as a whole. But regardless, been kind of a dramatic day here, so I think I'm going to start rooting for. I feel better about my hometown Carolina Panthers, who are horrible this year, but at least they don't underachieve. So I'm all good for living up to expectations. So I will follow teams that, if you're supposed to suck, and as long as you do suck, then I'm okay. So see a bunch of folks on here. This is our annual prediction show that I do in conjunction with Paranormal Sarah, who we do the Tuesday night show, Astrology and Alchemy with, and she should be on soon. So just going to kind of chill here for a little while. And if you're, I see some folks are watching. So if you're on right now, give me a hello. We can start talking. Sarah just said she's on her way. I actually did my predictions different this year. I always, 3 years in, I've had a pretty good track record, but I've done it a different way every single year. So this year I did it very differently, probably a little more general. So I guess some folks could say that I'm just kind of BSing my way through this. Whereas 3 years ago, I actually predicted the Ukraine war within 1 day of it happening. Hi, Nikki. And I think it was actually, 2 years ago, whenever the Queen died, I predicted that like within a day. So it's a little more general this year, but is what it is. We will keep going. The other thing I'm going to work on is we still keep going through like old investigations. So I have like a huge, hey, Steph, a huge, a lot of tapes that I did from, or video I've done from Trans-Allegheny. When I did that it wasn't the last time we were there, but it was 2018, I think, 2019. I think it might have been 2019, May of 2019. So it's a number of different ones there. We have a lot of folks on right now, so I'm just going to keep kind of stalling while Sarah tries to load on here. Or I'll start doing my own predictions, and she can just weigh in with hers. But we'll be doing the Tala stuff starting probably next week as we go through this. And I am going to add, because folks that are on here a long time know my political feelings, and so I'm really doing this outside of my political viewpoint. So I'm just going to say what when I did my analysis, what came through, and there's no real political angle to any of this. Folks that are on the show know well enough who I like and who I dislike. So anyway, I will just get started and waiting for Sarah to come on. So the biggest thing that's going to happen, and it's going to happen actually in just a few days, is when Pluto shifts signs, which really only happens like every 20 years. It's always like a really big thing. And so Pluto's going to go into Aquarius in the 21st of January for good. It was in there for a little while last year. And, the last time Pluto shifted, it was into Capricorn, which is always like finance and achievement. And what happened when it shifted was the Great Recession, which created different repercussions that have influenced our business life. If you know what it was like to work in the business world before the Great Recession versus after, it was very, very different. Getting mortgages, all those different things, very, very different. So I actually expect, even though it might not happen overnight, I would pay attention to what starts to change and what you start seeing in the news starting on January 21st, because that's going to start giving you hints towards some big changes that are going to come. And I think there's going to be some major changes coming from that. The other big shift is in May, and that's a Jupiter shift. And so what I think is going to happen from that is, and I'll start going through all my stuff overall, but these are the two big things I want to hold up. First of all, I guess I'll go back to the Aquarius thing. Two big things I think is going to happen. One, there's going to be a big technological breakthrough. We already have AI coming through, but look for, in the first quarter of this year, look for announcements of some type of breakthrough that is going to allow for people to better take care of other people. I don't know whether it's going to be AI. I think AI is out there, so I think there's going to be something a little different. But the thing with this is it's going to have a big hidden downside to it. So I almost think of the movie I Am Legend, where they had a cure for cancer, and it just so happened that the cure for cancer turned into a plague that like wiped out humanity. Like, I think whatever this big revolutionary benefit technology is that's going to come out in the beginning of this year, it's going to have a huge hidden downside to it. And really, I am not a big conspiracy guy. So when Sarah hops on, she's way more on the conspiracy side of things, or gives that more credence than I do. But I do think there's going to be a hidden downside to these things. And I guess I'll just quick add on the conspiracy end, where I don't land on the conspiracy side. I guess it's just because I do like project management. Conspiracies generally are predicated on the idea that humanity has a huge control over things. And I'm the exact opposite. I feel like we have our governments and things spend a lot of effort to let everyone feel like they're in control so that they feel more secure. But I honestly believe that the world around us is way more chaotic than we realize, and that nobody is in good control of anything. And it's really just people scrambling to try to give you that illusion that things are being handled. So I do not believe for 1 minute that there is like a huge group that actually has everything under control and manipulates everything behind the scenes. I think it's the exact opposite. I think the world is quite chaotic, and there's lots of different players fighting and doing lots of different things. And we have powers that be that try to sell the illusion that everything is kind of controlled to keep everybody calm. So that's why I tend to go against conspiracies, because most of your conspiracies are related to the concept that there's this huge like group controlling everything. And I don't think anybody's control. I believe actually that our universe and our society and everything is quite more chaotic than we actually realize. All right. Steph's saying going with a brain implant. Yeah, that the brain implant stuff is really scary. That could be it. So again, watch if that gets announced. The other thing that the other big thing that I was going to say related to big movements this year is my prediction is, and if folks know this, I'm also very anti-Russia. Don't like Putin. I actually am very pro-Western. I'm actually very pro like Western kind of, the Western dominance of the world kind of thing. So whether you love me or hate me for that, that is where my mind is that brings good things for everyone. I believe, so this is not going to make me very happy, but I believe in May there will be a peace deal. And what will come out of that is Russia will end up taking the territory they already hold in Ukraine. But the positive to Ukraine is they will actually be able to keep ties. They won't be in NATO, but they'll keep ties to the West. So it's kind of a win-win, lose-lose, depending on how you look at it. But I don't like Russia benefiting anything. I know as far as we have some political folks on here that watch things and stuff. I'm way more anti-Russia than I am anti-China. But I'm an old guy that lived through the Cold War, so maybe I'm just biased against the old Soviets. So I don't like seeing them get any kind of benefit. So Sarah tried calling in once. It hasn't happened yet. So I'm just going to keep going through mine, and maybe we'll just do a Sarah monologue when she's able to load on. Oh, here she is. Hey, difficulties.
For no apparent reason whatsoever. Yeah, like, computer restarting and then telling me it doesn't recognize my video and like the struggle. So for someone who just sent in a request for like, let me know when Mercury retrograde is over. It is over. But so yeah, I deeply apologize for that, guys, because holy cow balls, I could not get my computer, and that makes me nervous. So I'm kind of on the countdown for my laptop, and that always makes me a bit uncomfortable. But I was tuning in from my mobile device and already listening to you discussing the planetary shifts
Oh, good.
for Pluto on the 20th of this month. And so, for as far as the chat room and people sharing what did they think was going to happen, how do we feel about like the Epstein things, or how do we feel about national awareness? Because I usually, for the show, for the prediction show, guys, if you've tuned in every year, I kind of like have a theme. Like I kind of feel like I prompt you usually on those themes that we try and hit on over and over and over, and then we fill them in. So I'm completely unprepared, and that usually that's a good thing, that I'm able to write my notes and have them be completely random. Um, so as we
Well,
do that,
I only have one other bigger theme, and then we can discuss. So let me just throw my last one out here, and this goes to the Aquarius thing as well. Is I think you're going to see on steroids. I already saw last year, if you're paying attention, this big kind of the global South and China and Russia kind of pushing against U.S. and Europe running the whole show, and how we need to be more balanced, and they need to have a say, and basically which really amounts to like dictatorships having a greater say in how the world is run. I think you're going to see a greater piece of that. I think that's already playing out in what's going on in the Middle East. So I think you're going to see more push on that, combined with, I think we're going to become more isolationist, which drives me nuts because I always feel like it's people arguing for a bigger piece of a small pie. Or since we saw a lot of football things, the way I would announce it is, would you rather be a high school superstar in your hometown or a bench warmer on a NFL team? Which, the bench warmer on the NFL team makes $10 million. The high school superstar could be working at Dollar General. So it's that kind of mindset. It's the, I feel like uh, the isolationists want everything to be smaller, and they might have a better chunk, but it's a smaller pie and less opportunity for all of us. So I'm way against that. The last piece on that then is I also think with the Middle East, I think we will get sucked in militarily against probably the Houthis doing the shipping thing. So I expect we will be drug into military things by by February with the shipping pieces there. And it's going to drag us into a bigger, broader military conflict, possibly war by April in the spring. So for the second year in a row, I feel like I'm being very pessimistic, but that's my stuff in a nutshell. I can do a little more details as we go through, or if people have questions.
well, I want to
Real quick,
read
before I go to
something.
you, Steph Quick said Pluto's about awakening. Yeah, it's about innovation. That's where I feel like we're going to have this big innovation that's going to look really good, but have a huge downside to it. But there's also a revolutionary element to it. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the American Revolution. And I believe there's going to be very much social upheaval for the next like decade. It's just, you're just going to start seeing the stirrings of it this year. It's not going to necessarily be this year, but you're going to start getting the stirrings of some of the stuff that's going to go on.
I'm actually going to be writing these in my, guys, my journal. If you are following along our social media, I shared a little bit of a journal. And this is real. I wish I could see a little better. I might try and turn on the light here in a second. Okay. I want to read something really quickly as you are just exactly what you are talking about, Matt. Pluto, the last time it was in Aquarius, specifically the way that the planets are in ways that they are this year, from 1778 to 1798, in an era that, and I think of my history teacher, Bob Packett, this is a spectrum of events that's like American Revolution, signing of the Declaration of Independence, discovery of Uranus, modern ruler of Aquarius, the Age of Enlightenment, the French Revolution, publications of the rights of women, the first official wave of feminism in America. Some big movements, societal, technological things in that way. And that kind of ripple of whatever it was in March of 2023 that you kind of got, you know, a little blip of, a little thumbnail of, whatever
Mhm.
that suggestion is for rebellion. What was happening in March of 2023?
Oh, geez. I forget because I was in a recliner because I had my foot operated
Minneapolis
on.
was
So
struggling. Yeah, you were immobile. You were dealing with, and I think that this is kind of where a lot of people were coming just out of COVID and trying to get back into spaces, um, life change, and historically, like the 250-year Pluto return to give or take, it's a big shift. The next 245, 250 years is going to be what kind of moves on January 20th, that age of Aquarius. What does it mean? What does it mean specifically for you? So, for anybody, but then maybe politically, that Viva la Revolution space. What do we think for
well,
money,
I'll
economy?
add with that. I feel like, going to that space, I feel like, 250 years ago, it was much more of a move towards, um, kind of voice of the people and less, the kind of feudalism and aristocracy kind of got shelved and people have much more of a voice. I honestly feel the pendulum is moving way more, both politically on the left and the right, towards quote unquote strong leaders and I would say less democratic, more we're going to reinforce what we see as the proper values on everybody else. So I see, much like in the 30s, I see a big shift towards more like authoritarianism out there, which folks know how I'm wired. Like I serve no one. I serve no king, no
He
lord,
serves
no
no
nothing.
one.
So yeah, I don't even care if it's somebody that's got all their crap together. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to follow anybody.
Well, when I think of the water bearer, when I also think of the bringer of news, so science and technology with CERN, with aliens coming out of the Miami Mall. What do we think with Pluto in Aquarius for science and technology? What predictions are we having in that space?
Sorry, I was reading. Oh, hang on. I want to say hi to my daughter. She was scolding me because I was raging on my team, which I'm wearing this sweatshirt as irony because I officially gave up on them. They're pieces of garbage. Repeat that again. I was reading Steph's thing about saying a quick grab in stocks, which is funny because one of my predictions I didn't call out yet is, and it's already started to happen. So I feel like people put an asterisk towards this. Some of the signs I'm seeing in cancer and some of the things, particularly with the U.S., I actually think the mortgage rates in the housing market is actually going to look really, really good. Like there's going to be a lot of stability and a lot of positive things in the housing market, at least in the first half of the year. That may go south if we end up in a war, but like I expect like mortgage rates and things like that to continue to move in a positive direction in the next like quarter.
I think that upswing, I see it as well. An upswing and people making change, people preparing. I think where some people sociologically like go, you know, the age old marketing tip of people go to the liquor store when they're celebrating and they also go to the liquor store when they're depressed. That what we see in American economics and stock markets, that there's going to be, you know what? Screw it. If the world's ending, I'm going to go buy that house I've been wanting. You know, what's money in my pocket? And then another big chunk of that is going to be people going, I don't believe in any of that. I'm going to hunker down and be a dependable, stable thing. Um, we are real people. Hey, Shaylin. That's how we know people are home in the house. So those are really kind of only the big movements, I think. And Steph and other astrological people in the chat, please correct me, please. But for January, do you feel like there's any other cultural weddings, deaths, predictions that you intuitively
I
feel?
I, I feel like January is not going to be so much newsworthy in itself. I feel we need to pay attention because I think the hints are going to come in January as to what's going to develop during the course of the year. So it's almost like, pay attention to those stories buried on like the, fourth or fifth page, so to speak, or, the bottom of the web pages, things like that, because those are the things that are going to grow. I think back to even like the COVID thing when I remember seeing a little like side article about, strange virus found in China, and it wasn't like a big story and then ended up becoming a big story. Like around the 21st, I'd start paying attention to those kind of things. Now, what I do think is going to happen this year, and I think it could happen as soon as January, and I hope I'm wrong. Like that's the one thing I hate when I do these prediction things because I feel like people could think I'm rooting for it. I think we're going to get from everything that's going on in the Middle East. I think there's actually going to be attacks on the West as early as January, but certainly in the first quarter here, and that's going to set off a whole cascade of things. But I think it's going to suck our involvement into things militarily. I think it's going to drive this whole isolationist attitude, which I understand kind of why folks want to do that, but I still think on a macro level it hurts everyone. So I don't think it's a good thing. I've never seen an empire that, or a successful civilization that prospered by shrinking their footprint. So I think all that's going to go on, but I also think it's going to threaten our enemies enough, Russia and China, that the weird thing I'm going to say is I think there's going to be less adversarial things with us and Russia and China, and maybe some agreements there. And it's going to be more the ISIS and these kind of non-state actors of the world stirring up things that are going to be the big troublemakers on the world stage. But related to that, and it becomes this whole domino, related to that, I think there is going to be this push towards countries and regions who feel marginalized wanting a greater voice. And I think that will happen. And obviously that will happen at our expense. So it's not really great to, I'd still rather be in the stronger position than the weaker position, but I feel like our position is going to, for some self-inflicted, because we're going to deliberately pull ourselves out of things, but then because of other people pushing for more influence, I just think our footprint's going to shrink.
Well, let's take this to February 16th. Let's push it into February, because I think when people are thinking Age of Aquarius, I always sing that. February 1962, all 7 traditional planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Saturn, were in the water bearer, the humanitarian societal sign of advocacy, and the sign of Aquarius. The only thing missing was Pluto. And February 16th, 2024 is the Aquarius stellium. When people go, do you have a stellium in your birth chart? And if you don't know what's in your birth chart, please get a reading from Matt or or our dual reading that we do where we both give you our insight. Pluto and Neptune were missing. And now we're going to be having that age of Aquarius. We're really going to have some lineups February 16th specifically. A bunch of planets lining up. Do we feel like this is going to be a push in that space, that right here in the middle of winter, we're going to have this huge telecommunications, science fiction, computer science movement towards eccentric art and the age of Aquarius? People are going to start dancing around.
Well, I mean, think about it. I don't think it's like flipping a switch, but if you think about like the late 60s versus the late 50s, how different it was. And definitely a much more Aquarius kind of pushing the boundaries, where the 50s were, at least the 20th century version of Victorian times. Everything was very straight laced and then the 60s kind of everything went. So I feel like we're going to have another push in that direction, but I don't think it's going to be overnight. That's why I really emphasize, I don't think there's going to be necessarily a revolutionary year for things, but I'd really pay attention to the details, because I think you're going to see the seeds of themes that are going to play out for like the next 10 to 15 years, developing, particularly in this first quarter. Between January and March is where you're really going to start seeing some of these things start to develop.
This is going to be for those people, I know Chet, Matt, for those people tuning in, paying attention to technological advancements, paying attention to AI. There's some huge shifts coming out in Google and just kind of military counterparts. Amazon just came out with healthcare. So if you've ever played Cyberpunk, holy moly, guacamole. Huge potential impacts on society as we know it, but also on money, collaborations with money, and how we expect things to be maybe even showing themselves in the first quarter. That's going to be February. That's going to
Yep.
be um, February. So, February, knowing that this is like that pivotal stellium, Aquarius is really the big push. Sure, we've got, I think it's the Beaver full moon this month, and then February, I'll have to double check. How do we feel about any additional interests or predictions? Maybe aerospace, maybe UFOs, maybe bizarre. What do you have for predictions for the rest of February?
I kind of agree with Steph. I have a feeling that the Neuralink stuff, you're going to hear some more about that. That's kind of what I'm thinking is what's going on here. I don't think it's going to necessarily be AI because I feel like AI is already out there. I think that's going to still be something to be concerned about, but I don't think that's like I'm expecting some announcement of a breakthrough in the next few weeks, some huge technological breakthrough that is going to be spun as being really good, but have a huge downside to it. Might even be something we can't even comprehend right now. It might be total like game changer, but I'd look for that in the next couple of weeks.
Deaths, births,
I did not.
cultural.
I went through all that. I did not get very much on celebrities for the whole year.
I have a feeling that as far as those people asking on, because I'm from Kansas City, so we have to mention the Travis and Taylor kind of thing. I think February, I know, right? It's the NFL. It's going to be kind of prepping up as we start seeing the teams going to the Super Bowl, which we've got to mention, right? Things that we expect to be happening. Um, what do we see for predictions? And there's going to be some discussions of asteroids this year, but what do you think for February? Like Skywatch, Culture Watch. I'm going to say when I think of the stars, I wrote down stars.
Mm.
So I I jump to, well, do I think this is like a wedding announcement? Do I think that this is like she gets pregnant or something? There's already kind of awareness that they've been dating for much longer, and um, yada yada. I think that there's going to be a huge tornado. I think there's going to be a huge tornado in weather. And I think that there's going to be awareness in the asteroid that's coming later in the fall. We're going to get some information on that. And then I think Travis and Taylor Swift are going to announce something that they've actually like known a ton about and like,
Hmm.
you know, are already like leaking it late, is what I have for February. So for anybody else joining us, I would love to know what you have put down for your predictions. What do you see for pop culture? What do you see for weather alerts? When I say tornadoes moving all the way, like moving up and around, what do you intuitively feel about that?
I could see that. I got to be honest, and I kind of felt bad about this when I was going through this. I was getting almost exclusively military type things. I had like two big themes that kept coming up over and over and over again. And what I usually do is I'll do the aspects and then I'll pull like cards to elaborate on the aspects. And I was getting like the same cards like over and over and over again, and just very confrontational fighting type themes. So I really think this combined with lots of like is it six? Let me go through these real quick. So it was the same cards kept coming over. So some of the cards that I kept getting, Hangman. So basically, nothing you can do about it. That was a big one that kept coming over and over and over again.
I'd written down something about antibiotics. So
Just quick scan because these were why I was thinking, very militaristic. Eight of Cups. That's another one of kind of moving on, leaving something behind to go on to something else, which is kind of where I was getting some of the isolation pieces from. I got lots of 501s, as you can see from this. Fighting, conflict.
Halfway through.
I got lots of Emperor, basically heavy-handed king. We're going to go ahead and jam things down your throat. Scanning through. I got a number of 7 of Wands, which you see the lady on that stool with everybody around. It's being very defensive, being on the defensive, being attacked. Scanning through here. I didn't want to misquote my cards here, and I wanted to also show you. This is why I was thinking military, and you'll know this one, Sarah. I got this one tons when I was reading for the year. 8 of Wands. So action, activity, which you even see that they're like firing off cannons. So it's just like I got very militaristic type. This is the other one I was going to talk about, a 6 of Swords, which is basically, like leaving one thing in search of something else. So this is why I was getting a very heavy theme of conflict and leaving one thing to go on to something else. And that's why I really feel like this year I was getting a very strong vibe of military type things, in addition to kind of revolutionary change and this kind of, we're going to leave things behind and go do something else, which to me, my head went to that kind of isolationism. I will add too that I also did things around the election just to see, and this makes me very sad. Well, this makes me even sad. You might not even think what I'm going to, because I'd be sad if Orange Jesus comes back, and I think he will. But I got a lot around not being clear. So I honestly feel there's going to be, whether it's games played from either side or both, I feel we're going to have a repeat of like 4 years ago where everything's going to be up in the air, and we're going to have more conflict around that as well. So I don't think it'll be even by the end of the year, or like maybe even this time next year when we're talking. I don't know if we're going to have clarity as to what's going to be going on. I think it's going to be very much up in the air. Hello, Samantha. Happy to have you on for a prediction show.
Wonderful. Yeah, good to see you guys. I'm seeing a bunch of kind of new faces and new fun people chiming in. We do stream from Odyssey Radio, Subspace Radio. You can also find us on the Paranormal Channel, but also on social media for both Matt, for Sunday Night Dead, and also for Paranormal Sarah. So there's people streaming in from all over, and I love seeing the different predictions. I like seeing kind of where people are putting spaces. How do you feel? I know Golden Globes, who's going to win the best picture of the year? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? I know you and I don't usually get into a whole bunch of that, but we can definitely share that stuff on social media or hit on that if you'd like. But anything else for February, or can we move into March? Because there's kind of one big thing happening in March that I want to see.
Yeah, moving to March. I just think this is funny because I think you did it the opposite way last. I did not do it by month this year, and so I'm glad you did it by month. So I'm just going to kind of wing it. I think we did the opposite last year where I had it by month and you didn't. So
Virgo here. Yeah, I've got to do it. I've got to stay organized. And you guys, I use these. I have a journal that I keep, and I'm pretty rigorous about sitting down every Monday morning to plan my week out. Now, whether or not I ever check it again the rest of the week, it's really hard to say if I get a moment to sit down, but I'm trying. And so it's one of the things that I'm really doing for manifesting is actually writing it down and looking at it. So pen to paper here, I've got my things written out, and I'm filling in some of the holes and doodling as you speak, because that's how intuition works with me too. So March, what do you have kind of written down? I have one major number, and that's the 25th. But before we get into exactly what that is, what do you have for predictions for March?
Yeah, so I had, this is all going to be a general theme. I feel like, February, March, April is going to be this increased ramp up in whatever this military conflict is going to be, which right now, common sense would be Middle East. I think there's already been rumors that Britain and the U.S. are making plans to start bombing Yemen over these shipping things. So I feel like that's all going to start escalating, and we're going to get sucked into something we don't want to get sucked into. I feel it's going to continue to ramp up until, I know I'm going to jump ahead here for you, late April, early May, when the big players are like, holy shit, we're kind of sleepwalking into World War III. And I feel like deals start getting cut in May. But between then, I think there's going to be some kind of attack in January. Things are going to escalate dramatically, and I think it's going to continue to increase in February and March, maybe April, kind of in the middle, because by the end of April, early May, people are going to start pulling back, and they're going to start negotiating peace deals.
Mm.
And I feel we lose on all these peace deals. It'll get spun that we're doing well, but I feel in general, we meaning the U.S., the West, I feel we are going to make concessions, and so we'll have less power by the end of the year when this all gets done.
I feel like that Nikola Tesla speaks to me a lot as kind of one of the spirit guides in the realm, and 369 vibrations, science, quantum technology, just all of the things to be aware of as far as vibration goes, being on the same vibration, being on the same frequency, language, all the things, all the things. And March, I kind of circled the number 3 as I see it for March. And I think, okay, this is the first month where vibration starts to really shake. And so as I feel that, it's like, okay, does this mean more earthquakes? We're going to start to see more volcanoes. Well, one thing that is going to be happening is March 25th is a lunar eclipse in Libra. So Libra, we'll get to that separately, right? I'm going to, because Libra is so important to just the societal changes that January is kicking off into February. So you have the up, down, up. And lunar eclipses, this is, births, deaths of kings, beginnings of wars, according to the New Testament, for any Christians out there, the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth. So this is a specific time in history. And on March 25th, specifically, a lunar eclipse in Libra. So when I say that, how does that align with some of your predictions?
I didn't do anything aligned necessarily with the eclipse. What we hear a lot in even in kind of the business areas I work in, everybody wants to quote unquote own their own destiny. So I think you're going to see a lot of that where you're going to see things like shrink. Things are going to be much more like provincial as far as like mindsets from everyone, which might on the surface look better, but really what you end up happening is it's woefully inefficient. Having everybody trying to do their own thing, and also that increases the chance of conflict. It's a smaller piece of the pie, so everybody gets less. And then with everybody getting less, they start looking at opportunities to take from weaker parties. So I think the chance for conflict goes up. So I feel like we're heading into bad. It's going to get spun as a big positive. You're going to have more freedom to do your own, but it doesn't. The bigger fish ultimately eat the little fish, and with less rules governing that, it becomes more Wild West, and you're going to see a lot more conflict. So,
I love that you're saying Wild West. I love that you're saying Wild West, because I think about in patterns in history. I think about times that this specific, like this eclipse. Last time it was Taurus Scorpio, and that was the King Charles III, like starting his reign. I think with the ripple of disclosure, transparency, and now instead of Taurus and Scorpio, no offense, they're not cardinal signs. So, like you said, this is kind of that new era. This is a cardinal. This is an Aries Libra axis. So, and it started back in April 20th of 2023. So if you're somebody who's, got an eidetic memory and can remind us, or you've got Google at your fingertips, whatever happened on April 20th, 2023 is what's going to be in that Libra scale, the duality of good and evil, right and wrong, yes and no, war and peace. Whatever happened on April 20th of last year is going to be what's pivoting on March 25th of this year. So if anybody, has that in the chat room, that is that cheating for psychic predictions to actually know that to a 5 degrees at Libra? It's going to be about harmony. It's going to be about balance. I think it's going to have something to do when you think about the initiating of war. It could be a truce. It could be a recalibration with some ally or some, crimes of humanity. It could be, however, like you had mentioned, this is for any astrologer, Steph, please chime in. This is a south node. So if you're doing tarot to the north, there's the watchtowers and the other to the north. Very metaphorical to the north versus to the south. And this is a south node. This is reopening old wounds. This is baggage. This is unhealed trauma. This is a lunar eclipse, a moon eclipse to illuminate the darkness, the void, the truth, all of those themes. So it's going to be kind of a huge emotional shift. Ooh. What happened? Ooh, the spring equinox. Yeah, it's going to be a spring equinox too in that very same space. How do we feel? Anything to mention for March as we move into that's going to be a huge cleaning detox. I think that there's going to be a cleaning out of the kingdom. A cleaning out of the kingdom! Who do we think it's going to be? Prince Andrew? Who's it going to be? Who's out? Who's in?
I'll let you make that pick. I have no vibes on that one, so I'll let you make that
None?
pick.
Okay, cleaning I've got to put detox. I've got to put cleaning. I've got to put some of those vibes I've just got to share in there. It's kind of wild to think about. So for those of you sharing your predictions in those spaces, write those down. Share them with us if you want. Do it on the can the government really postpone an election? Sure, especially if it's in wartime.
Yep.
If we're in a wartime, which we will be. So,
yep.
Hoorah. We'll see how that goes. Let's write down April. Let's stay organized, Virgos. January, February, March, April. Something else very special happening astrologically in April. But this is like we're pushing into the number 4. When I sit down and I write, what do I think is happening in this space? I see a lot of water. I see a lot of flooding. I see a lot of emotional feminine energy. I see that detox, purge, and signing of treaties not being a real thing, and truth and disclosure going out the window, and so therefore being a big issue. So I kind of wrote down like washing things, a big wash, an opposite, a revenge wash. April. What do you have written for April?
I have, I feel like I'm going to be repeating the same theme here. I have that again, this military event that goes on, which I think could be Middle East. I'm not sure, but my guess right now it's going to be it's going to be Yemen, which is going to suck us in and get us in with like Iran and all those folks in the Middle East. I do feel there's going to be a weird alliance in March or April that's going to get done. That's going to put us in a really bad position and make it look like, oh man, like we're held in check. And I feel we're going to surprise everybody by responding militarily. And then that's going to get us kind of condemned. So I feel by like April, most of the world's going to be kind of anti-US over what we do here. So I don't know what that's going to be, but there's going to be some position where our enemies feel like they have us like backed into a corner, and we're going to surprise them by reacting militarily when they didn't think we would. And
false alliances, rebuttals.
I don't know. I don't think this is going to be it, but think of like what happened earlier with like, China brokering Saudi Arabia, aligning with Iran. It's going to be one of those things where all of a sudden some key player that everybody thinks we count on is going to kind of either flip sides or become neutral, and we're going to go ahead and do something anyway. And I feel like, most of the UN, most of the international community is kind of anti-Israel anyway on this. I feel like, that's the side we're going to fall on, and it's going to be us, Israel, and a few Western countries against everybody else in the court of public opinion. And we're going to say, screw it, and actually escalate things.
Escalate. Speaking of escalate, April 8th. Guys, watch how this pans out. You can see Mother Earth move and shake and dance in a rhythm. You can even see the jukebox. You can see the songs being played and when they shift. April 8th. It goes from Libra to April 8th, a solar eclipse. So we go from a lunar eclipse to a solar eclipse. in Aries. So on April 8th, a solar eclipse does the opposite of what we just had when you talk about escalate, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Kickstarting a new cycle just after the spring, just after the equinox. We wake up, we rub our eyes, and this is a solar eclipse. I can see clearly now the sun and the moon together are going to sit at 19 degrees Aries alongside a stellium of planets in Mars energy for war, for violence, for strength, for strongholds, for gung ho, Aries fire. What do we think for 19 degrees Aries and all of these planets kind of just coming out of a reflective space over global affairs?
I just think it reinforces all this, that things escalate in April. And then I honestly feel like by the end of April, folks are going to start looking at this and be like, holy crap, like this could get really bad. And so that's why I feel like around the 25th of May, when Jupiter goes into Gemini, is when I feel like there's going to be that peace deal with Ukraine, because all the other players are going to be like, look, with the way the Middle East is blowing up and looking like it's heading towards World War III, none of us need to be dealing with these other players. And so that's why I think that's going to drive to a negotiated deal in Ukraine where everybody gets a little of something they want, but loses something that they wish they didn't. Meaning Russia gets the land, Ukraine gets still autonomy and will be aligned with the West.
Move that brain in that intuitive space, and for everyone in the chat room or for anyone listening now as a time traveler. Not just in the political scope, but also in the earthquakes and the floods and the just natural phenomenon that we see happening with Mother Earth in the springtime. This time of year for major change. It's the time for babies being born and maybe they're not cracking out of the egg, or they don't make it, or there's like, the little egg in Charlotte's Web that gets taken by Templeton. Like this is that time that we're highlighting potential significance, but also crucial times of loss. And so specifically looking at when I'm trying to look at predictions, guys, we want to be evidence-based. Can psychic predictions be that? We're going to be objective as possible. Specifically Mexico and Canada. So this solar eclipse is happening across the Great North American Eclipse is what they're referring to it, because some of these places are going to be able to see this solar eclipse where other people have not maybe been able to see that in a very long time. It's a really reflective time culturally. If you think about people throwing their babies off a Mayan cliff in hopes of God, please, let all this craziness stop. Please take our white goat, our white wolf, our smallest calf, our biggest pig, our smallest baby, take them now, because we want change. Death, rebirth. It's at that time of great collapse for empires when things in Pluto have been in return like this. So this is since the 1970s, the Toronto area in Canada and really low parts of Mexico are going to be seeing something, and we're going to be in alignment since the 1970s. Do we think there's something to be said about the great North American space? Is this going to be the Great Migration? Is this going to be the collapse of the borders? Is this going to be when stuff significantly crucial happens at this moment across the United States?
I don't read that much into that. I won't argue with you.
Should intuition say anything, Matt?
I won't argue with you if you don't, but yeah, I don't.
You don't? Okay.
I just feel with the shift in January and these eclipses, I just feel like that all speaks to the beginning of this year being where all the big significant themes start showing up. And I believe the significant themes for the year are going to be war and isolationism and kind of revolution tearing down the current order. Or folks wanting to. I don't think they're going to succeed, but I think there's going to be a lot of voices saying we need to redo everything.
Well, if anybody is, again, really good at remembering things, whatever was happening, they say, and this time in 2005, I can't even remember that far back. Whatever was happening in around this time, 2005, is very similar energy as far as Aries goes to what is going on in uncontrollable life events. So that placement kind of showing us, okay, what was happening back in 2005, what kind of things were moving, what kind of things were coming to light. Oh, I know for me, my grandfather passed away. These were times in my life that I was learning about, loyalties and certain things like that. So I know that personally, I can put down predictions and things for myself, but I also know in placements for the country or for Super Bowl, this is in that time when we start thinking, okay, how do we feel for some of those? And we're going to finish the show tonight, making sure we mention Super Bowl teams and things like that. But anything else we want to mention for April before moving into May?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, I see the general, because I saw some moves here too, on banks and things. See, I see much less about. I know a lot of people say this is a good thing. I view it as a bad thing. I see things shifting from these big corporate running everything to look. We're going to make it more small and more local, and you're going to move towards how it was maybe 120 years ago, where you're going to have, maybe there isn't a big company running everything, countrywide. But now in your town, there might be a family that owns everything and influences everything. And you have the little small town corruption in the small town. And to me, that's a million times more vile than, because if you're going to be an empire, be have a big empire. Don't be, somebody that runs a town is, I can't respect that. So, and especially if you use their influence for that. So,
that heavy.
Yeah, that's where I see things coming more, which is really just a reselling of feudalism from a couple hundred years ago, where you have, the local power brokers in the towns running everything. And so that's where I see things going. And I feel it's going to get sold as it's better for everybody, but it's going to be good for it's going to be good for those families and suck for everybody else.
Matt, how do you spell feudalism? F-E-U?
Okay. I always get that mixed up. Is it EU or I think it's EU? Feudalism.
Feudalism. I'm putting that at the end of April. I hate to say beginning of May, because moving into May, I say, okay, this is where the line, if you're listening for stocks, if you're listening for money, if you're like, when should I get my bug out bag? Of course, you should always have one. But if you're really kind of just waiting until, to click your Amazon cart, I would say maybe May. May 25th.
Full disclosure, this is just me, but, I've said this before. I always say I always want to play for Team Empire, so I'd rather be the bench warmer on the
Team Empire.
I'd rather be the bench warmer on the Super Bowl champions than the star quarterback in some podunk town. I'm just, I don't, And so even the folks that then dominate on small local levels, I don't even respect them. So it's just.
Well, astrologically, again, to stay kind of Virgo organized, some of the things happening in May, or the energy of May, especially the 25th. So what time in May? Beginning of May is when I see Mother Nature shaking her shoulders. I really just vividly saw that George Carlin skit of him talking about us being very similar to fleas. And so I'm actually writing George Carlin, the fleas, or something related to, I would hate to say a rat virus or things that we might be seeing. I see stuff in that way, ramping down. I'm seeing things falling. I'm seeing things going down in the beginning of May. And then I see that all the way until, and I wrote the 25th. So May 25th is when Jupiter is in Gemini, and that's the biggest vibe. That's the biggest vibe of May, is Jupiter. You guys know how I feel about Jupiter. That's the lush planet of Chris Farley. Gimme, 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 gimme. The cocaine planet. It's been in Taurus. It's been in Taurus for 12 months, 13 months. I'm not sure how long it's been. A year. Taurus, the stubborn Ferdinand the Bull, sitting there smelling flowers, not doing what he's supposed to do. And now it's going to go into Gemini. And so I roll my eyes at Gemini. I don't particularly love Gemini because I associate it with not being able to make a decision, with being like the house of the rising sun, with your foot on the train and your foot on the platform. And so how do we see this vibe changing or shifting for May?
Keep going on. I just gotta
Yeah. Well, the online movement suggests, and all of the psychic Nostradamus and blind women in third world countries that always seem to magically be trending this time of year. Man, I can't believe that they had that woman on Fox. What were they doing? We won't
Oh, I
even go
didn't
there.
see that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. You didn't need to. Anyway, they had for the New Year's this tarot reader who looked like she just looked like
On Fox?
I believe it was
They had to
Fox.
do if it was on Fox, they had to do it to make them look bad because I thought
It
Fox
was
was all about.
horrific.
Yeah,
It was horrible. It was really bad to watch. The whole thing was really bad to watch. She looked like she had just drank all of her peppermint schnapps, and she had 52 cats at home, and just it was a real show. Anyway,
because I mean,
on
I
the
mean no,
20th.
I mean nothing negative to
No
anybody that.
disrespect.
I mean no disrespect to anybody that's watching this, but just my stereotype is I would feel like your average Fox watcher would be the same folks that would be messaging us saying that what we're doing is
I
from the
was
devil
watching
and
Fox,
we
Matt.
need to go find Jesus.
We do need to find Jesus, and we need to make sure we know what he looks like. And they were showing it, asking a tarot reader, and she said, "Oh, it was like the Five of Wands, I think is what it was." But I try and get a handle on all the news segments, guys. So I sit back and watch all the trending stuff to stay up to par, up to date. And holy Hannah, people believe whoever they really are, that this is going to be when like China takes over satellites. This is going to be the Chat GPT 5 moves into quantum realms and robots take over the planet and Tom Cruise comes down with baby Dakota Fanning and things come out of the ocean. That it's going to
Hey,
happen on.
I'm gonna realize since you said about the blinds, it makes me think of the blind Russian lady. Have you ever heard of the? I just I watch lots of weird shows to get show ideas. Have you ever heard about the incident in Bulgaria in the early '90s where they dug this tunnel to try to find something? And then whatever it is, and then people gave warnings like you're not going to like what you found. And then these like weird reports are that they actually like found like this like 10-foot tall like being in this tunnel. Whatever it was, they basically filled up the tunnel and like roped it all off, and it's still like militarily guarded to this day. But the government was like digging. It's a really
Is
really
that
weird story.
true?
Well, the story. Who knows what the stories are? Like it becomes whispered up. But the true thing is much like Area 51. There's now this area in like Bulgaria that is like they like sealed and like the farmland and everything. They just like concreted over like all of it, and it's like guarded now.
Is this real, guys? We need to know. I need to go to Bulgaria
I want to look at this.
immediately.
I just heard this like 2 days ago, and so now I want to dig into this more. But what made me think of it when you said it was there's that Baba, not Baba Yaga, but the blind,
Yeah.
the blind seer in Russia. She actually like reached out to like the Bulgarians from Russia and said, "Don't keep digging in this tunnel. What you find is going to be really really bad." And then whatever the hell they found, there's all these different reports of what they found, like when they kept digging, which is really, really weird. But whatever happened was they didn't just collapse the tunnel. They like filled the whole entire tunnel up with concrete and like walled the whole area off.
That's so weird.
And
And
it
I
was
say that.
supposedly they were looking for like hidden treasure. And since like it was after the Cold War was collapsing, like the government needed money. So they were searching for this treasure. But whatever happened down there, they decided they would like seal it all off so that nobody could get there ever again. And so it's really weird. I know this is totally off topic. But
No, it's not off topic because some of the weird and random shit about the Miami aliens, for example, some
yeah,
of the weird stuff coming out of Miami, and the biggest theme or belief right now, at least, is that they had this big EMP pump there. They're trying to shut down news activity there because they don't know if it's weaponized things going on. They just don't know what's going on, and everybody online, I say everybody, the most popular trend or belief in regards to these alien phenomenon showing up at the Miami Mall is that if you put the Google Earth coordinates, the latitude and longitude for Miami and that specific location, that actually, if you switch them by accident, oops, somebody sitting there at the Antarctic portal for CERN or HARP, I guess, just put the wrong one in the wrong one, because it actually lines up to the same military bases used in Antarctica for things that are closed and sealed that people think they're using to open and utilize alien phenomenon and interdimensional technology and things. And so it's just ironic that in this digital communication, this are we going to have robots? Are we going to have Tom Cruise in the world? The world that this is also some of the things that you're just mentioning, synchronicity that you would
Yeah,
be
while
mentioning.
you're talking, I'm looking to see if I can even just find some story of this, and so I can, and I'll post it in the chat while we're talking here, if I can find anything related to it.
Well, as far as Gemini goes, guys, the two-faced, tell me more, tell me more. I always think of that. You guys hear it, don't you, when I say that? The grease lightning. Tell me more, tell me more. You're getting two versions of something. You're getting two camera versions of something. You're getting two transits. You're getting two versions of a telecommunication. You're getting a portal from two ends, like social media. So thinking that in what was it again, May 25th, that we're going to have this particular energy that somehow maybe shifts or has an additional attention span or has
Right.
a, you know, birth or bright side or new envisionary reaction, something. Instagram, is there going to be like a new social media, a new
I'm gonna
thing?
I'm gonna add real quick, and I'm gonna mispronounce this. Zarikina, whatever that is on the on what I posted the Wikipedia piece on it. There's not much on that article, but that will give you the name that you can start digging down that rabbit hole of. That is the tunnel. That is the area that they were looking for treasure that they got warnings about, and then they mysteriously acted really weird and like walled the whole thing off afterwards, which they acted certainly like they found something they didn't want to get out.
Ah! Nephilim creatures in the earth. Weird
Well,
shit.
that's not the only play. There's other stories like this, so it's just this. But I just heard about this one 2 days ago. So
And Gemini is media. So I'm going to say censorship. I'm going to start thinking, hi, Callie. Hi, Susie. Hi, Sharon. We're going to think about all of the different versions of the story. We need April O'Neil and.
Well, my Jupiter in Gemini was where I think that's going to be the shift where Ukraine gets resolved. And I feel like gets resolved because again, Gemini is very much Jupiter's opportunity. Gemini is very talking back and forth options, and I honestly feel like it only gets done because all the players involved, not just Ukraine and Russia, but all the sponsors all the way around have bigger crap to worry about because I feel by like March and April, like crap's going to be blowing up elsewhere in the world, primarily. Middle East and Iran, like stirring up crap.
Well, and I want to think about, I don't know what that was. June. Let's move it to June because then we've got 3, 6, 9. Moving halfway through 3, 6, 9. My Nikola Tesla themes. I wrote down 6. I put down like a little lightning strike, but I knew astrologically, okay, tell me what's happening. June, we're moving out of a Gemini vibe. We're moving into a Neptune vibe. What? You guys know, if you've listened to the show, if you listen every Tuesday at 9 p.m., when we do the weekly astrology, and when Matt and I have shared with you our readings and signs with astrology, Neptune is all about delusion. It is about taking the matrix pill. It's about if people are struggling with depression or addiction, this is when they're going to overdose. This is when social workers are going to find, oh no. And since spring of 2011, Neptune entered Pisces. It's been wishy-washy. It's been water. It's been alcohol. It's been misinformation. It's been dreams. It's been delusion. It's been, I don't want to say that just, Pisces, but Pisces is so passionate, so extreme. all of those things. And June is a ripple of these themes throughout Neptune. Um, how do we feel about?
Which I'll say, just so everybody knows ahead of time, most of my predictions were front loaded. I feel I don't have a whole lot for the rest of the year other than the conflicts don't go away, but they kind of mellow out. They don't escalate any further until we get to the election, which I feel is going to be a big mess of schemes, and like we're not going to have clarity on that. So
Well, I'm trying to see
that's
when
my
exactly.
That's my cliff notes for almost the rest of the year, Sarah. Is that I feel like most of the big shifts happen in the beginning, but nothing resolves through the rest of the year, including we won't necessarily know who won the election, but who is declared the winner. I know the people will argue no matter what happens. It's going to be up in the air at the end of the year.
I wrote down Charles Darwin, but it's the second that Neptune does this little shift. And so this November 2023, Neptune did a little blooby blobby and went backwards and forwards and kind of doing doubt, is this real? Is this not real? Some of what you're talking about with like just the political voting, like what the hell, are they going to get off? Is he going to, are we going to have Trump? Are we not going to have Trump? Like who's even going to be on the ballot? Yada, who to what. On the 2nd of June, Neptune being direct might give us some insight. It might give us some direct, weird, man, I would say wormhole, glory hole, foxhole. We don't know what kind of hole this thing is, but it's going to be some kind of a hole to see something. What's going to happen? Is this going to be some kind of an alliance? Is this going to be what? Because whatever it is, we're going to hold fast to what we believe, whatever this is, until Neptune enters Aries in 2026. I think it's going to be religious.
Which is bad. Since we've done this show, and I will say again, and I hope I'm wrong, but I feel where like the wheels fall off and we actually have like domestic unrest and like possible, like, because again, last time Neptune was in Aries was the Civil War. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the Revolution. I feel when we have them both in place, that's where I feel like we have like massive civil unrest here.
And it's going to go into Aries in 2026?
Yeah. So we still have a couple of years of, as much as we're bitching now, and as much as we're bitching now, I see things getting worse, not better. So,
right, it's June 2027 that if people really want to know when bullets get fired and things might get really bad, I mean, the bad is going to be done. But Neptune hits this kind of, they say it's an anaretic, and I didn't know what that meant. An anaretic degree, the 29th degree, the final degree of any sign in the zodiac, and it's urgent energy. And so I had written down in my notes, okay, what is
when does it hit that this year?
On June 2nd.
Okay.
The anaretic degree of Neptune, and will carry a sense of maturity of time. It will have transited an entire 30 degrees and it'll be ready to move. And so it'll start to cut it, and it's cutting ties. So it's at a breaking point. It's at an absolute.
Look for themes. I'd say in June, look for more themes of things that are going to start little things, but they're going to grow into bigger things.
Mm-hmm. Themes of fallacy, truth, knowledge, insight. Things like this are going to be really, really key. Okay, here we go. July.
I feel like, I'm just going to say really quick, because I feel like, and much like Pluto, Neptune's in its sign for a long time, but I feel like Neptune in Pisces, even though you don't like that, it's that introspective. So I'm delusional, but I'm living in my own delusions. When it shifts to Aries, it's going to be, I'm going to impulsively start acting on delusions. So it's like the schizophrenic or the serial killer that starts, chopping people up because he's hearing voices from God. Whereas in Neptune and Pisces is the schizophrenic staying in their room and maybe overdosing because they're hearing voices. I feel like the delusion becomes very active and destructive when it moves into Aries.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's action, but it's action based on false information and delusion. So it's just people doing stuff based on really bad info.
People in their weirdest people in ways.
In Aries, as I said before, it's funny because I always get, again, this is, we usually hear this on the Tuesday show, but it's the water signs that always say I'm like, critical of them. I honestly feel I'm most critical of all the signs. Aries is the one I'm most critical of because as a Capricorn, I like to be very methodical in what I do. And Aries is impulsive and not thinking things through. Mm-hmm. So I view it, it's like you're giving the keys to the universe to like a 12-year-old boy.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
Aries, that's the energy. Aries is middle school age male energy is how I view Aries. They'll do shit and they may do some good shit, but it's not going to be very well thought out.
I'm going to write down a name of an actor. It's just a name that hit me because of some words that were used.
Oh, weird. So once you said that, an actor's name hit me too. So I'm just curious. So go ahead, do your thing, and I'll share.
I hope we didn't think of the same person. Because I'm wondering, I don't necessarily always know if it's good or bad.
Aries, Neptune, and Pisces all distill down to one stereotypical dude in my mind. So. And I like this person, so I hope nothing.
I do too. I love this person.
All right. Hang on.
I put Keanu Reeves.
Hang on. Don't say it. I'm going to write mine down.
I said it.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear you. So don't. I'm going to write mine down so that we don't. So keep talking.
Okay.
You get a pen that works.
I do like this. Yeah, no, I like this person, and so I write this name down because this is intuitively, again, how things kind of come to you or how they process. Important, I think, if you're writing something down or someone is talking to you or you just something pops into your brain, right? And I know where the suggestion came from. I know exactly what it was. Who is it? What did you hold up? Hold it up.
Can you read it?
No, I need to look on my other screen.
Robert Downey Jr.
Oh. Really? Okay, yeah, no, that's not who's in my mind. So I'm going to write that down too.
I like him, but I feel like he encompasses Neptune, Pisces, and Aries all together.
Yeah, that is a Robert Downey Jr. energy. No, I am thinking Keanu Reeves. I'm thinking that for a range of reasons. And I see also...
I see he is definitely Pisces.
Who's Goldie Hawn's husband? Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell. KR. That's another Keanu Reeves. Okay. So I'm seeing KR. So I'm just going to put that down. Okay. July. As we move through this, guys. Okay. So we're finally to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
We're going pretty long here. We got to.
I know. We're rushing it. We're going to move it through quick, guys. Okay. So July, one particular vibe, astrologically, one major thing, one significant thing is happening. So that's how I did my predictions this year, guys. When I'm meditating on stuff, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, what the F is happening this month? What's the theme? What's Mother Earth doing? Because Mother Earth really is going to be running the show this year. A lot of the solar flares, EMP vibes, weather, migration or not, is going to be pretty influential to us, and being aware of it is pretty important. So July, Capricorn. July 21st specifically is a full moon in Capricorn, and it's right in the middle of like Cancer season, and it's specifically important, mimicking the anaretic degrees that you saw in the month before. So it's a structure of something taking a quick sharp turn. A crucial turn. And so whatever it is, it's happening in the final degrees of Capricorn. Old ways for decades is going to start to be highlighting themes for emotionally charged, like responsibilities, burdens, things going into the fall. Holy shit, your stuff didn't turn out the way you wanted. It's July. 7, it's just over half, and you're exhausted and you're not getting necessarily maybe what you wanted. This full moon in Capricorn, guys, you know that energy. It's all about investment. It's about what it is that you're doing. It's about your money. It's about your ideas. So on the 21st, that's a full moon there. How do you feel, or what do you have written for July? I have this being a cutting of allies and an emotional surrender.
So I get a lot of. I'm curious. I'm gonna like actually spin this to you to see what you get on this. Who comes to mind when you think of King of Swords?
King of Swords is someone who is separated from their spouse. There's someone who is sharp-tongued, sharp-witted, intellectual. They speak very clearly. This is going to be, when I'm thinking like already in that Capricorn vibe, this is like a detective. This is a police chief. This is somebody who is like that Chauvin guy in the Floyd case. This is a masculine man separated from his wife who is sharply using his language. That could be maybe a Trump character.
See,
I don't always see him with Melania.
see, I feel like a King of Swords type is gonna arrive on the scene in July from all this chaos, but I actually view like the King of Swords
Ooh,
as
Vivek. What's
I
his name?
feel. I see. I feel the King of Swords is kind of that vibe of where I feel like a King of Wands is more of a charlatan. I feel like the King of Swords is more. It's not a charlatan. There's substance
Tom
there.
Cruise.
I'm gonna do my thing, and I really don't give a crap who I trampled to do it. So watch to see. And since I feel there's a lot of like conflict among countries, I don't feel this is necessarily a U.S. So I would say look for July to see who arrives on the scene as kind of the power broker in July. It may not be lasting, but I feel like somebody is going to assert themselves on the global stage in July from all this chaos.
Is it Vivek? Vivek? Vijay?
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be outside the U.S.
Oh, you do. It's outside the United
I,
States. Okay.
I feel we are going to have a much smaller footprint as the year goes on.
Okay.
And
Well, I don't see anything else.
the sad thing about it is, I feel most people in our country are going to be cheering that as a good thing.
Right. Well, and I have riots, and I see just it's hot. I see power outages. I see quietness. Capricorn energy is sometimes that, oh yeah, well, if I can't have you, no one can. Cut it. And I just see some of that energy kind of showing itself, especially right around the full moon on the 21st, right in the middle of goddamn July. It's going to be hot. And my brain keeps saying that, like, it's going to be hot. It's going to be a blackout. It's going to be like hot pavement, black tar. It's going to be sticky. It's going to be thick. And that's all I can see when I'm thinking of celebrities. Who's doing this? Who's doing that? My intuition is like, no. You're trying not to stick your butt to the leather seat and just get to where you're going. Like it's visceral and very hot. So August, what do you have for August?
When we all cheer it, I feel like we're going to keep cheering it until we realize that we got 30% of all the power, money, and influence totally locked down, but that other 70% is all getting locked up with somebody else. And only then, when we realize that, crap, somebody else has got way more power, money, and influence than we do, are we going to start second guessing that Fortress Earth, Fortress America, America is an island type thing? Because I feel like it's all going to consolidate with somebody else, and we're not going to like it when it does. I don't think it's going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be China, but
well, August 5th through the 28th, The biggest theme when I sit down and I write for August, it's like, okay, coming out of this sharp, sticky hotness, what do we have for August? Like, what is Mother Earth doing? Still hot, still pretty visceral, but the biggest thing that's happening is Mercury goes retrograde. This is going to be the significant Mercury retrograde for the year. So, ironically, I thought, oh, okay, so it's not maybe my blackout or my quiet time was a little off. But this is from August 5th to August 28th, and it's a Mercury retrograde that is kind of hinging between Virgo and Leo. So, never fun, never a good time. Retrograde meaning we're going to really struggle to get our ideas across, to get any of our contracts signed, to get any of that paperwork filed. If you have stuff you need to get it done before August 5th. Get that stuff done, get that project turned in, because that is going to go sour. It's going to go south. It's going to get lost if you don't get it in before August 5th. Absolutely imperative. And then during that big chunk, what do we think? This is communication, all that stuff. This is right before kids are going back to school. This is like a really blurry time. It's really foggy. Oh, snap, a foggy, blurry time right after all of the blackouts and EMP bursts and baloney. Crap! Like, I can already, this is going to be a breaking point where people are losing themselves and people are struggling. So, what do we foresee in August?
Well, again, my general theme is still that the conflicts are going to continue. I feel domestically we're going to move for balance. So whoever arrives on the scene is going to have their like new way of like doing things, and we're going to try to kind of triangulate and mediate that. But I think like in general, things are going to continue to be pretty chaotic and bad. I feel like people in general are going to look for comfort in the chaos. I feel like the folks that are selling the comfort are mostly not going to have people's good intentions. So, always when things like these things happen and people get rattled, just think back to like 9/11 for those folks that were around back then. When people's worlds kind of get rocked, they look for security and they're willing to kind of give crap up and give power to folks in order to feel secure. And going back to where I feel like, I think it was before you were on here when I was saying the whole conspiracy theory thing, where I feel different on that is if you believe in conspiracies, you have to believe that there are powerful people controlling things. And I'm the exact opposite of that, in that I feel like actually the world is very, very chaotic, and we have folks that sell the illusion of control to make people feel more safe, because I feel people would freak out if they realized how chaotic the world really is and how the folks that are in control really are just barely holding on to this stuff by a thread.
It's so freaky that you say that, because I had written down foggy, foggy, foggy in that retrograde. And Fog of War is a documentary that I have quoted in the last month or so when I think about Cat Williams just went viral, and he's always been a really fun comedian. He's out of Kansas City, so I'm very familiar with his work and I love his style. He's an independent producer, and so he's always kind of been known for writing those lines of media conspiracy because he's an independent artist. He can do that. He can say what he wants. He's not confined to censorship. And he went viral on TikTok and other social media. He did at the very beginning of the new year. He launched it in timing very well. And he's like outing everybody. He's like talking about this, talking about that, this and that. This truth space, this fog of war space, he mentions in this, and I circle back around because he mentions, why has people in Maui, what's his face with Facebook, why are they building big bunkers? Why are all these celebrity bunkers being built? What do they know that we don't know? And he makes the comment that they just know that the idiots are holding the codes. That's all they know, is that idiots are holding the codes. And in the documentary, The Fog of War.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. And I feel like actually powers that be sell some of the conspiracy stuff because there's greater control of society if people feel like things are being like. I honestly feel like people would freak out if they realize. Like I feel we are just hair width away from chaos all the time, and the powers that be are not in control of everything. They actually expend tons of resources making it look like they're in control, but they're trying to herd cats and rein in chaos. And so I honestly don't, I don't buy there's a group controlling everything. I think it's the exact opposite. I think there are so many different players fighting against each other that we expend a lot of energy trying to sell everybody that things are way more controlled and put together than they actually really are. Because I feel like I'm okay with it. I have a high risk risk tolerance, so I'm kind of comfortable with chaos. But I feel like there's a lot of folks that are much more comfortable, even if it's an evil thing. They're much more comfortable thinking that everything is being controlled than the idea that everything is a chaotic mess and anything could happen at any time. And so, which is funny. I saw Stephanie keeps bringing up Nikki Haley. I'm not necessarily a Nikki Haley fan, but I will do somersaults if it's anybody other than the orange guy. Because as I've said before, I would vote for Tim Curry in Legend. If you know who that character is, over Trump. Yeah. So basically, I'd vote for the Antichrist themselves before orange guy. So,
you wouldn't.
I want any option other than the two that are looking like it's going down.
Well, I think that August, when I think of that fog of war, it makes me think of McNamara. It makes me think of gratitude for just how quickly things could change. And so who knows who it could be. When you say arrival, hell, that could be aliens. We don't know. I am drawing in a big circle in my journal. It's just this big foggy moor, like Edgar Allan Poe, kind of showing me this vision across an English countryside or something. It's just very foggy. So September, the astrological theme is a lunar eclipse in Pisces. Very dreamy, very passionate, very Pisces, going with the flow, lunar. So we're talking moon stuff. These are feelings of wanting to have breakthroughs, get over this baloney. This is heaven and earth. After this really crazy time, this might even be a breath of fresh air. This might be a good shocking breakthrough. Maybe it could be, what are we thinking for September of this year?
So I feel it's going to start shifting towards the elections, which I feel it's funny because I feel like the things that happen on the global stage. So it's weird. Even though we have like the two different teams and they dislike each other, I feel like things on the world stage are going to kind of force both sides to have way more overlap. And so you're going to start arguing over much more details. So I feel like the left is going to have to be forced to be more isolationist, and the right is going to be forced to be more interventionist on where it's going, which is one of these things that I always, it's funny. I got into a lot of arguments with some of my friends the last couple of months because a lot of the same folks that were like, not a penny for Ukraine, not a penny for Ukraine, or like all in on jumping in and helping Israel. And so I tried to make the argument of why is Israel more strategic than like Europe, and they can take care of themselves. And so why should we ever even bother in this? If we pump all our own oil that we don't need the oil, why do we care about the Middle East? And of course it boils down to religion and religious folks. And so I feel like these are going to kind of unify together. Like the folks that are isolationist on the right are going to want to get involved in the Middle Eastern stuff, mostly because it's Israel. And the folks on the left that want to be very interventionist on things just because we only have so many resources to go around are going to have to start dialing things back. So as much as rhetorically both sides are very, say things very opposite of each other, I actually feel like left and right are going to converge on a lot of these things. So I find that very, very interesting. And so you're going to start, people are going to just start voting for more team than policy because the policies aren't going to look all that different as we start getting into the fall. So that's
we are moving into the fall.
And you're going to have, there's going to be this whole sideshow. That's why I really, I think it would be better for everybody if both the current guy who's got cognitive issues and the other former guy that has both cognitive and psychological issues would just move on and give us another two set of options to fight, even if those two options are horrible.
We might not.
I wish they would move on.
Well, I'm going to add for the end of September that I suspect with some of the new writings, the new language, the new shifts, the new way of doing things as far as technological advancements for the year go, I'm going to say it's September 17th and 19th that we see maybe even new books of the Bible being released, or new versions of the Constitution coming out, or new supplementations for robots, AI, and that integration as we see it happening. Heaven and earth and the new additions to mankind. And I see that written in that way. So then October, there's a major astrological thing happening. I want to kind of give you the vibe for October. October 2024 is all about a solar eclipse. So again, we're seeing eclipses back to back to back. Lots of change, lots of cultural change, residual, throwing babies off of mountaintops. Guys, this happens in these times. October 2nd specifically is a solar eclipse in Libra. So the very beginning, things kind of, whoa, from that earlier thing we had in Libra this year, right? A full 10 degrees in Libra. It's kind of bringing things full circle. So a solar eclipse, maybe balance, maybe closure, maybe resolution. Libra, all about justice, democracy, advocacy. 10 degrees, even number, right? Maybe we feel like it's completion in the tarot deck. Not a lover, not a fighter, but, overcoming, prevailing. What do we think for the chaos and the overwhelming human shifts we're seeing, Darwinism, even if you will, as October moves?
Well, what I see is happening, at least obviously, we have folks that tune in from all over the world, but this has been, generally we kind of have a U.S. centered focus on some of this stuff because it seems to kind of dictate how everything else plays out. I feel like at least from the U.S. and the West, we're going to start focusing by the fall on all election stuff. And so even if there is a war waging on and other things going on, it's going to get much less attention from everyone. And we're all going to start focusing on the political issue. And I honestly think it's going to be, if it plays out the way that it is right now, and we're sticking with these two people, which I'm not convinced on the left, they're not going to do a bait and switch. If they're going to put somebody else on the ballot last minute, but maybe not take them through the primary process. That's been my thoughts for 3 years. I still think that is going to happen. I'm just not quite sure who it's going to be, but I do think they're going to just plop somebody on there and not necessarily have them go through the primary process and have it be a very last minute kind of surprise to the other side to give them less time to prepare and attack. So I do think that's going to go on, but I just think it's going to be messy and ugly. And as much as I would like somebody to show up that's kind of more of a middle ground and care less about team and more about moving things on, I feel like we just get more and more polarized. And so it's more about owning the other side and how you control them than actually like getting crap done. So I just feel like
polls shifting, polls movement. Man, doorways of chaos and peace, things closing and opening. I highlighted the word prevail, to prevail, to overcome, but also prevail, to pre-see something, to kind of be in that space before something is seen or known. And I feel like this is going to be an awareness space. This is that fulcrum to be sitting in the middle and to almost like Gemini, slightly differently, be the hinge of that Libra scale and see what's being measured and what is being measured.
And I looked into Biden's birth chart, Trump's birth chart, the U.S. chart. You can do one for like countries, like when they're founded and things, and really tried to hone in on what things looked like around the election. And I got to say, to me, all the aspects, everything, it looked like undecided and people kind of arguing their cases. I got lots of Sag, Aries, and Scorpio type energies, which makes me think again, like behind the scenes, maybe some shady stuff going on behind the scenes, as well as kind of arguing, advocating for your spot. So I don't feel like I didn't get something that really, to me, spoke of clarity.
Well, and I think that when you talk about the election, I mean, that moves us into November. So is there anything remaining for October? Any deaths, any celebrity movements, anything that you show, advancement, technology, health, anything to mention?
To me, when I looked, maybe I looked at different charts, everything looked really quiet this year, other than the big Pluto one and the big Jupiter one. Everything else was kind of smaller.
I would say any new music, maybe seeing in September, October. I think when you mention it being just a messy but isolating and duality and poles, I think that it's going to be quieter than maybe even say November, but November is going to be, it doesn't look good, guys. November, the astrological wave for November is the next big Mercury retrograde, because I know that's what people are like, oh, Mercury retrograde. It's when your car is going to break down. When is it going to be that your computer finally breaks? Mercury retrograde. When is it going to be that you mean to put out a birth announcement, but it ends up being a divorce announcement? It's going to be retrograde, where you meant to say something and it comes out completely different. And the Mercury retrograde in November, I always think of November, that's my dad's birthday. I'm always trying to get familiarized with, like, okay, we're prepping for Thanksgiving. We're really in the middle of the space. What's happening? Well, it's retrograde in Sagittarius. So it's not only retrograde, a quiet place of being misunderstood, but it's in Sagittarius, the sign of the explorer, the person who wants to kill you from a distance with a spear. And so this is sometimes cultural, sometimes this is religious, sometimes this is ideological. This is something that, why are you wanting to kill somebody from a distance? Well, it could have been a heated argument, some of those conflicts or scandals or issues that we've been dealing with, whether it's an Epstein thing or a religious thing, that new book of the Bible they just found. It's an encounter that we just can't believe it. We just can't believe that this could be real. We don't understand it. Thanksgiving, we can't get our stuff figured out. We don't know what's going on in the airports. We don't know what's happening because we did blah, blah, blah. This is what I see for November. What do you see?
I agree, and what I read into was some of the Sag energy, since that's the explorer. And when I looked at these charts, there was a lot of Sag aspects coming up in both U.S., Biden, and Trump. So I envision this almost as people exploring different ways to get their guy to win, knowing what happened last year with all the Green Bay sweep and all these different schemes to try to maneuver things legally and stuff. So that's why I think this is just going to be ugly, because I feel it's not going to be clear cut, and there's going to be all these different legal games going on to try to put the one person over the other, and it's just going to be bad. I guess the good sign is I went all the way to the end of the year, and I didn't, as much as I got a lot of conflict this year, I didn't get anything that pointed to domestic conflict. So I don't think we're going to have tanks in the street and militias shooting each other by the end of the year. That I didn't see. I just think uncertainty.
June 2027.
Yeah.
Okay. June 2027.
I do think it happened when Neptune goes into Aries. I do think we have civil unrest here, but we have a couple of years before we have to worry about that.
Yeah. So December. Let's just move it into December then and finish this show on up, and then make sure that we mention, who do we think is going to win the Super Bowl? Who do we think is going to win the World Series? What major people do we think are going to die or have babies? But December, what do you have for December 2024? Excuse me.
Sadly, I feel like a broken record here. I think it's going to be dominated by who's going to run the U.S. because that's going to have implications on all the other things. It's going to have implications on the big conflict in the Middle East and these other pieces. And I do think there's going to be, I don't know, Pepper just has my chair was squeaking. I don't know if I'm sorry if it did. I didn't realize it did. The other thing I don't think I mentioned is I do think there's going to be a lot during the course of the year of shuffling of alliances based on this. I think there's going to be some former countries that aligned with us that are going to turn against us and vice versa. And so I think there's going to be a big shift along those lines, and that's going to get further muddied by a greater push in this country to do less for other countries and more that whole isolationist piece. And so there's going to be a lot of churning amongst, who are our friends and who aren't. And, even if they aren't our friends, some folks that are in much weaker positions might say, well, we can't rely on U.S. anymore, so maybe we have to cozy up to somebody else, and that somebody else might be somebody that we don't like. Like a good example is last year what happened with Saudi Arabia getting close with Iran and China because they didn't trust what we were going to do. I see more of that kind of stuff going
on. How do we feel?
I don't like it, but again, I'd rather be engaged and try to have a seat at the table than take my toys and go home. And, so I don't like this whole trend, but I think it's a trend. I see it at work. All that, it's funny. We went from being, I think even like 100 years ago, very local to getting great efficiencies by kind of getting very global on things. And whether we like it or not, there's always folks in spots that aren't going to work out well. But in general, our economy has benefited greatly for that. You're seeing it swing back to everything's going to be local again. Which, again, there'll be good. There'll be pros and cons to that in an overall scale, as long as this doesn't turn into, there's inefficiencies in doing that. And the more small and local you get, as I said, the more you start looking at, well, I'm not doing very well. The person next to me is doing much better. You get to the, bigger fish eating smaller fish. So, it increases the chance of more conflict.
This is kind of a really interesting thing. The end of the year, talking about like these conflicts and these different spaces where things may not pan out the way we think, or someone kind of, jerking back and doing a little bit of a hokey pokey. I'm looking at the end of the year and I see how Venus and Mars end up going retrograde, and they really don't do this until the very, very end of the year. And it's kind of a fight between Leo and Cancer. And there's discussions about how with Venus, it's your sex, it's your money, it's your art, it's some of these things that culture really celebrates as far as sensuality goes and feminine. And then Mars, women go to Venus, men go to Mars, women go to Venus. And so this masculine energy, which is going to be in Cancer, retrograde, that there's this suggestion that there's going to be a clashing or lashing out of genders. That the great feminine and the great masculine, or the great good or the great bad, the great big black and white birth rates, social dynamics between marriage and conflict. But also keep in mind that age of Aquarius, these were rifts of feminism. These were shifts of change between pleasure and purpose, the life balance of what culture is supposed to be about. And these are some of the things that are going to be heavy themes in the election. So how do we think that they might tie into what we are seeing for December with, again, things going retrograde, things pulling in, things going cold, especially in time for the winter solstice? Things are going to be really, 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 really quiet. And Steph said, don't forget the war on beef. Yeah. The war on beef. What do you think?
I think, honestly, and we didn't really talk about this, I think a lot of the social justice warriors, social justice things out there are going to take a back seat. You're going to see less of that, not more of it next year, mostly because we're going to have bigger problems to worry about.
Bigger fish to fry.
But the flip side on that is you're going to have other countries arguing that they should have a greater seat at the table. So I think you're going to see much more of this. And China and Russia have done a great job of kind of stirring everybody up on this. But I think you're going to see on the social landscape, more of it coming from like other countries attacking us in general, not our society, trying to change itself, if that makes sense.
Mm, hmm. I think sometimes when I believe the gender, the biological receptive and assertive, the give and take, it's much, again, kind of referring to that. If you did get a chance to listen to the Cat Williams special, I did, so it's fresh in my mind, that he describes the Republican Democrat space as that we need to pan out and still remember that, yes, we have an offense and a defense, but we play on the same team, or we should be in recognition that we play on the same team. So the other team is really interestingly watching us fight over here and bicker between each other, when that shift might need to change. And we have it written down, a big shift kind of happening in that space in the end of September. Hopefully that's, election inspired. Hopefully it's not something outside of our country that provides that united thing, because as far as sociology goes, there's only a few things that create a united nations or a united states or groups people together, and that's like the Olympics, like great trauma, like a terrorist attack or something. So hopefully we don't have a unified bad guy that we all can suddenly magically
Yeah.
somehow come together.
And the piece about that, I'll just quick add is, our economy is I think we don't give this enough attention. It's very export based. So if you think about it, if we shift and become self-contained, which a lot of other countries don't want stuff coming from us anymore or anywhere else. It's all everybody wants local. If we become local, everybody looks and goes, well, we're such a huge, if we stop importing from China, everything's going to be a lot more expensive. So people complain about inflation right now. If we consume things that are solely made here and don't export things, we become basically a self-contained economy. Things are going to be dramatically expensive, so more expensive. So again, I get back to that. You're going to get a bigger slice of a much smaller pie. So that's how it was 50 years ago. If you look at, people, a lot of folks that want that, keep looking at how great, just look at what life was like 50 years ago. I mean, it's a trade-off. There's things that were much more positive, but again, people had one car in a 1,000 square foot house, and it's just
Life's gonna change.
Not that it's all materialistic, but your relative wealth back then is not what it was, and it would definitely go back to that. We'd be in
Things are changing. Times they are changing.
In townhouses and scrapping to save up for things because everything would be way more expensive. It's just like the idea. Everybody forgets, if everyone was a millionaire, $1 million would mean nothing because your wealth is your price parity compared to what other people have. And so, not trying to be greedy or anything on it, but it's just a fact of life. So, if everybody starts, if prices start going up, and everybody starts, it's the whole thing. If wages start, if everybody starts making more money, but everything is more expensive, you don't end up being any better off.
Supply and demand, guys. Come on. That's all right. All right. We are to the end, guys. We have come full circle. It's been 2 hours. I can't believe it's been a complete 2 hours, even though, and it's my fault, you guys. I still am apologetic for the beginning. It was so rough. My computer, I think, is on its last leg. Hopefully you guys don't predict that in this year. But I'm excited to see how some of this stuff is able to move us for wealth and for investment. And hopefully if we're planning a holiday or we are making a move in our life, we can kind of take a gander at the worldview, the astrological almanac, and say, okay, what does Mother Earth have in store for us and what things do we have written down? So hopefully you guys had the chance to write some predictions down. Get it in your notebooks, get it in your journals. I love my little journal I've got going. And if you have things we should add, we should add. Before we disconnect, Matt, who do you think is going to be the winner of all the things? Who's going to have the best year ever?
Well, I hope, first of all, I hope I'm wrong on most of these predictions because, like most years, I feel like I was very negative. Super Bowl. I'm kind of leaning towards Baltimore, but I would not be surprised if Detroit does a huge like Cinderella run.
I think it's gonna be.
And I would love that if that happened, but like I feel bad. That would be my prediction. But if you're they have a worse history than my team, so like I have a hard time predicting them to do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit makes a really deep run.
I have Detroit written down. I was just watching them today kick our butts, and I thought, dang on it, they're going to go all the way. And even as I said it, I went, they are going all the way. Like, I feel like those little gray pants are going to smear themselves right into the darn Super Bowl. And so Detroit, man, you ain't got nothing up there in Detroit. Maybe you have a Super Bowl winning team.
It's Baltimore in the AFC. I don't, and really, I generally like Kansas City. I didn't like them in the Super Bowl last year because they beat my team. But in general, I like Kansas City. But I don't think it's going to be them this year. I'm kind of leaning towards Baltimore.
Ravens and the Lions. Okay. What about baseball?
Baseball. God, I wish my Phillies would get their crap together on that one. My gut feel on that one is the Yankees are going to come back, and this is going to be the return of the Yankees, and they're going to have a couple of years of good, solid. So I kind of feel like it's going to be I feel like this is such a generic pick, but I feel like it's going to be Yankees Braves with the Yankees winning it.
Well, Grandpa Jim, for those of you who do watch on my social media, he was the Yankees fan in our family. He was the guy who came over from Sweden and Norway and joined the Navy and really loved the Murderers Row. And in our family, for my boys, they have a bunch of hand-me-down Yankee stuff. And Grandpa Jim turned 103 this year and then passed away right around Christmas. And it was a great, he was 103. Oh, okay. But we got all of the Yankee gear, all of the stuff that had always been handed down and passed and shared in his space given. And I thought, man, I sure hope that this is going to be relevant. And as I was looking at it, I thought, you know what? They might go all the way this year and maybe this stuff is worth something. So I'm hopeful for that. And that's who I have written down, but it's probably a little biased in that space. So all right, we've got the Detroit Lions and the New York Yankees.
We're pretty similar. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they look kind of
leaning towards the Lions and the Yankees.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be right too. So you guys share with us what you have for the new year. Let us know if you think we're going to get to Mars, if we're going to be finding aliens at the Miami Mall, if we're going to have any major deaths, or who you see having babies. I do want to say the end of the year retrograde. If you are someone who is trying to make a major life change in that way, if you are looking to beat cancer or get pregnant or have this like major life shift that you've been wanting or kind of thinking about, those spaces for that happening right at the end of the year there, like December 5th in that retrograde. Some of the Nostradamus stuff when they said that, people will have a really rough year. They will go through a lot of major life change. All of the horoscopes will be making transformative, identifying shifts, but the very end of the year comes with those things that you're hoping for. So I think that that's an interesting kind of addition, that the year might be full of ups and downs, but at least it ends quietly and it ends positively. So, keep those thoughts in your mind. And then hopefully you guys do share what you got and that you join us on Tuesday at 9 p.m. For the astrology breakdown. And then Matt, are you going to be going on to do stuff or did you already?
No, I decided I'll do it next week.
Okay. So then Tuesday
we'll do the astrology. Next Sunday we'll start doing more of the investigation stuff. So
perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And again, I really do hope to see what people have for their predictions. Share on the Astrology and Alchemy Facebook or on the Paranormal channel, wherever you're joining us and listening live. Put your predictions in. That way you can point to it and get that screenshot and go, see, I told you I was psychic. And you'll know that you knew, and then we knew that you knew. So that you got to write it down. All right, guys.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.